Airlines, an area that you had sworn off, you went back into pretty heavily a few years ago. You now own major stakes in American, United, Southwest, and Delta. And in the most recent filings, it showed that you had bought even more shares in Delta. It pushed you above 10%. When I just talked to you a couple of months ago, you said you generally try not to push above 10%. What happened?
Well, that was an interesting situation. Delta made an appearance, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or at some investment conference, and I think they announced they'd bought in 26 or 27 million shares and borrowed $1 billion to do it. Well, I like that from two aspects. They'd bought in 4% of their stock, so all of a sudden we own 4% more of Delta than we had the day before. I like the fact they were willing to borrow $1 billion to accelerate a stock repurchase program. But what I didn't realize was that purchase had taken us over 10%, so I was already in territory that I didn't plan to get. So I just decided to buy a whole lot more stock. I mean, once I'd lost my virginity, essentially, I thought, why stop at one, you know?
Does that mean you like Delta better than the other airlines at this point?
No, I accidentally went above 10%. And
you accidentally?
I
do that a lot.
I made an investment in U.S. Air back in the late 1980s, and I think it was for $380-some million. Ed Colodny and I had dinner, and he said he needed some money, so I wrote the check. And I think before the check had cleared, the money was pretty much gone. I mean, it was U.S. Airways went broke a couple of times subsequently, and I tried to sell our interest at 50 cents on the dollar and couldn't do it. And unfortunately, it had this period when it actually did well. So we actually made money on that airline investment. But if you look at the number of airlines that went broke in this country, if you look at the number of auto manufacturers that went broke, I mean, capitalism can be rough. It produces good results overall, but it is survival of the fittest. But the airline industry is a very, very competitive business, and it'll always be a very competitive business. I don't think it's a suicidal business anymore, but it was for quite a while.
3 of the airlines that you own a major stake in also were flying the Boeing 737 MAX and have had to ground those. I don't know how closely you've been following along, but what do you think about what you have heard to this point?
Well, I don't think that, obviously Boeing has a lot of work to do very promptly, and the airline industry has been so safe. I mean, unbelievable. We happen to sell insurance also, and the rates went down so far just because the industry is so safe. And obviously there's a problem with this 737 MAX. But Boeing, you can bet they're staying up 24 hours a day to get it worked out. And that won't change the industry or anything over time. Airline travel is, it's almost impossible to believe how much that's improved in terms of safety over the last, during my lifetime.